Assalamualaikum and hi. Today our group is assigned to do a study on the positional environment of Aeolian environment. This study is presented and prepared by me myself Mahadhir bin Abdul Hamid, Muhammad Haziq Imran bin Hasnol Imran, Muhammad Luqman Hazim bin Hadari, and Nick Muhammad Nassem bin Nick Muhammad Noor. Have you ever wondered where is the word Aeolian came from? Or what is the origin and meaning behind it? The Aeolian word is derived from Aeolus. It is the name of the Greek god of the winds. So the term is used to describe the transportation of material, whether it is rock, dust, or materials by the wind. The wind can erode, transport, and deposit the surface materials that is laid on the Earth's surface. So how is this possible, you might ask? This is because the wind in the area is under a great force which can even move the pebbles and materials on the ground to move from one place to another. The Aeolian environment occurs in many places, such as coastal zones or arid regions. It happens because the hot air at the desert will rise and the cooler air comes in to replace the rising hot air, and the cycle will continue. Thus, the generation of winds in the area consistently. The speed of the wind also higher in the desert area, as it has the greater pressure gradient resulting in greater force of the air. It will make the air can carry the pebbles strong enough to carry it to another place. This phenomena occurs specifically in the sandy area because it has no mud or soil moisture. Because such place doesn't have these two conditions, thus it is making the materials on the Earth's surface does not stick and can move easily with the wind as the transportation medium. And the majority of Aeolian sedimentary rocks are fine-grained stones and siltstones. So due to the low density of the wind, it cannot carry the larger grains. Therefore, the well-rounded grains will be the main rocks to be transported by the winds, and it is a lot easier for the winds to carry it.
Hi, my name is Nick Muhammad Nassem, and I will explain about the Aeolian process, landforms, and deposit. Aeolian process involve three main processes, which are erosion, transportation, and deposition of sediment by the wind. It can occur in a variety of environments, including the coastal zone, cool and hot desert. Common features of this environment are non-existent vegetation cover, the presence of strong wind, and the supply of fine sediment, which are clay, soap, and sand. First, let's have a look on erosion. Erosion is a geological process in which earthen materials are worn away and transported by natural forces. In this topic, wind is the responsible force or medium to move the particles. Aeolian erosion involves two linked processes, which are deflation and abrasion. Deflation occurs when fine loose sediment is picked up and carried away by the wind due to the lack of vegetation cover to hold the soil and sand together. The rocks in the sand will be left behind to form a desert pavement. As you can see from the picture, the rocks are originally inside the sand, but during the deflation process, all the sand are carried away by the wind. Abrasion occurs when material carried by the wind is blasted at rock's surface, cause them to wear away and make the rough edges become smoother and flatter. The absence of protective layer such as soil or vegetation at desert rocks make them constantly exposed to the wind, and that is the reason why they can have the unique shape as you can see from the picture. The next process is transportation. Material is transported by the wind in three different ways, which are suspension, saltation, and surface creep. Suspension occurs when the sand has been picked up by deflation, is suspended in the wind, and the particle can be carried for very long distance between 10 meter to 10 kilometer, or it maybe can be greater. Saltation occurs when particles between 0.1 to 1.0 millimeter in size bounce along the ground up to 1.5 meter high, and the particles carried in saltation are used in abrasion. Surface creep occurs when larger particles, which is particles that have 1.0 meter or greater in diameter, are pushed and rolled along the ground. The particle cannot be lifted by the wind due to its weight, which is heavy. The last process is deposition. Deposition occurs when the wind speed drops or it meets an obstacle such as rocks, and the fine sediment carried by the wind, or known as loess, build up in a sheltered area behind the rocks and start to accumulate, and sand dunes are formed when more materials are deposited. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So moving on to the facies Aeolian environment, which will be presented by me, Muhammad Luqman Hazim bin Hadari. And first thing first, what is facies? Facies in geology is an overall characteristic of a rock unit that reflect its origin and differentiate the unit from others around it. For example, mineralogy and sedimentary sources, and also facial content, sedimentary structures and textures distinguish one facies from another. So for the Aeolian facies, is that Aeolian facies form some of the world's most dramatic landscape and comprise important parts of the geology record. So one of the example of places that the Aeolian facies exist is beach and maybe semi-arid or arid regions such as cold and hot deserts, or maybe agricultural fields, and maybe some terrestrial planets, notably Mars and possibly Venus. So according to the Cohen 1993, stated that there are two types of Aeolian facies deposit that are recognized, and it is Aeolian sand sheets and also dune. So moving on to our first point, which is the Aeolian sand sheets, is that Aeolian sand sheets deposit are characterized by a flat lamination, as either by rainfall or salutating grains on a flat bed surface or by subcritical climbing ripples. So modern Aeolian sand sheets form a significant part of desertic system worldwide. And although the well-known examples are in trailing and advancing margin of Earth. So, Aeolian sand sheets normally scale around 0.3 to 0.5 millimeter thick. And as you can see in the diagram, is that Aeolian sand sheets, one of the example of Aeolian sand sheets is that the wind sculpture form developed on a wind ripple deposit. And as you can see in the picture of B, that the detail of the deposit show a very fine to fine grained sandstone with inversely graded wind ripple strata. And you can see how fine the grain of the wind sculpture. So for the Aeolian facies have many possible bedding structure, as you can see by the Jones Carrer and Kushel article in 2016. It said that the activation surface show a similar trend of cross strata, and there are two types, which is dune and interdune. Interdune surface truncate underlying cross sets of dune facies and can be overlain by horizontally stratified interdune. And the reactivation surface truncate underlying strata and it dip at a medium to high angle, which is about 15 degree to 20 degree in the same dip direction of the cross bedding. So surface usually followed by a change in the angle and or dip of the cross bedding. And interdune surface bounding dune cross strata without the occurrence of interdune deposits. And also, Aeolian facies model composed of three subfaces representing ephemeral lakes, sand dunes, and alluvial fans deposits in the stratigraphic record. Although dominated by the large-scale plana and through cross-bedding generated by dune migration, these three subfaces will be intercalated in stratigraphic section. Dune and interdune deposits show marked variation in texture, but in both deposit sorting is very well. Alluvial deposits are characterized by poorly sorted grains, where the lake deposits show a prominence of evaporates. So, you can see the diagram at the right, which is the idealized Aeolian facies model with both dune and interdune deposit, which is by Murad 2010. Moving on to the dune morphology, is that dune morphology is a typical Aeolian dune, forms from the deposition of saltating sand grains, and it is typically a dune is an ephemeral structure that migrates, divides, or fuses with other dunes. As it displays, it has two. Firstly is the stoss face, which is the upwind face, generally low angle with ripples. And the secondly is the slip face, which is the lee or downwind face, and typically a high angle down, which send slide or cassette, which is you can see in the diagram by the GEOLOGY sedimentation and stratigraphy in 2019. There are four basic dune types, which is first is the Balshan crescent dunes, and the secondly is the transverse dunes, and thirdly is the parabolic dunes, and lastly is the longitudinal or self dunes. So we will talk one by one of each dune. And firstly is the Balshan crescent dunes. Is that the Balshan crescent dune is a solitary crescent-shaped dune whose point downward, and it forms where the sand supply is limited and the wind is strong and constant. Thirdly is the transverse dunes. Imagine a Balshan environment but with much more sand, because one of the characteristics of the Balshan crescent dunes, because it forms where the sand supply is limited, but when it is a transverse dunes, it has much more sand, but it is in the condition of Balshan environment, so that the Balshan grew to where they fuse together into long wavy ridges perpendicular to the prevailing wind. So the transverse dunes form in sand-rich environment with strong, steady prevailing winds, which you can see in the picture is that they are like wave sands, and it has one direction of wind only. Thirdly is the parabolic dunes, and parabolic dune is common in coastal areas with moderate to abundant sand, and which some vegetation cover. So one of the example places is the agricultural places, and the shape of the parabolic dune is the crescent shape, but the tips point upwind, as you can see in the picture. Okay, for the last and fourth basic type of dune is the longitudinal or self dunes. Is that the dune effectively doesn't know which way to migrate. As you can see in the picture that it has many direction, and it doesn't know how to migrate, and the orientation represent an average of the various wind direction it experience. Slip and stoss faces change identity frequently because there are high angle and low angle of wind.
Hello, so my name is Muhammad Imran. So I will talk about the Faces Association, which to more specific is the Aeolian Faces Association. So before that, we need to know about what is actually Faces Association is. So Faces Association can be defined as a group of faces that been used whenever we need to describe the particular sedimentary environment located at the study area. So as our group been assigned for the Aeolian environment, we can say that all the faces found in an Aeolian environment may be grouped together to define an Aeolian faces association on that area. So to tell more specific about what is actually Aeolian faces association, we took data that we gather which referring to the New Queen Argentina Basin as the location of the study area. So this is the picture of the maps of the New Queen Argentina Basin. So first of all, at New Queen Argentina Basin, the major association or the faces association there, which it said that is almost entirely comprised by medium to fine grained sandstone with bedding dips ranging from steeply inclined 25 degree to 30 degree to sub-horizontal, which 0 degree. So this is the picture of the medium to fine grained sandstone that we can found at the New Queen Argentina. So next, the second picture show that it said low angle to sub-horizontal lamina are composed of medium to very fine grained sand, varying in thickness from a few grains to a few millimeter. So the another faces association which the Aeolian consists there is the composed of medium to very fine grained sand. So this is the picture of the medium to very fine grained sand. And last but not least, the picture of the another Aeolian faces association that located at New Queen Basin, which it said that inclined lamina close to millimeter thick and composed of very fine sand, which are also commonly present interbedded with inclined strata. So this is the another major Aeolian faces association that located at New Queen Argentina. So this those three figure that been shown before show that it was a major Aeolian faces that can be seen at New Queen Argentina. So that's all for the Aeolian faces association from our group. Thank you.
In the final analysis, formation types of dunes is highly dependent on the intensity and direction of the wind, such as transverse dunes is formed when the direction of the wind is perpendicular to the ridges of the sand, and the star dunes is formed when all the winds come from all over the place and heading towards the same point. Wind is a major geological agent and it plays a major role as the transporter in the coastal and arid regions. It can change the form and form new landscapes of arid and semi-arid regions such as Yaldaam and Ventifex. About 33% of the world covered with desert and the landscape has been modified with the movement of the wind. Besides, the dunes at the coastal zones act as a natural barrier against a storm or waves. When there is a thunderstorm or a tidal wave, therefore the plants that is located behind the frontal dune will not be affected and will not be flooded by the ocean water and the excessive water from the storm. Thus, the dune allows the more complex and more plants to grow in the areas protected from the sea spray or strong winds. Other than that, the dunes also act as a reservoir sand. The dunes will restore and maintain the beach when the erosion occurs. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of destruction towards the dunes. This unfortunate event will eventually cost us humans and also other living creatures natural habitat, and the seawater will flood the land. So how does this happen? This turn of event is caused by the natural cause such as it is destroyed by the storms and erosion. Also, human can contribute to it like walking on the dunes. Therefore, we hope that we as humans can cooperate to not destroying the natural dunes that has been protecting us from the tides, such as simply not walking on the dunes. And we can also do dune hatching like placing timber on the exposed sand surface. This effort will act as a barrier to the dunes and allow them to regenerate the dunes naturally. So that is all from our group, the presentation. Thank you.